Hello and welcome. Good morning for the European attendance and good afternoon for the South Korean attendance. Welcome to our new 2021 webinar about SPF and sun care products. So we are going to start. My name is Elisa Esteve. I'm chemist. I work at COSMESERVICE as Product Safety and Regulatory Affairs Manager. First of all, I would like to introduce our company. We are COSMESERVICE, a consulting company focused on cosmetic safety and European regulation. We offer our advice to cosmetic companies to help them manufacture and sell cosmetic products safely and in compliance with the European regulation. Focused on what our clients need, we perform the PIF, or Product Information File, that every cosmetic product must have. Also, we perform safety assessment, or CPSR, the Cosmetic Product Safety Report. We notify also cosmetic products to the CPNP portal, and we act as responsible person in case they need it. Nowadays, we can offer the same services also for the UK market after Brexit. Regarding the safety of cosmetic products and efficacy, we perform for our clients also the tests needed at PIF, among other efficacy and in-use tests. We place here only the mandatory ones, as stability or challenge test. Our support services include reviews for ingredients or labeling, and also our team will help you at importing or exporting your products. If you want more information, just contact us. So let's deep into it. Today, we will talk about the latest news about sun care products. What are UV radiations and how can be measured, taking into account the legal framework? And substances acting as UV filters, how can be measuring SPF, and some key takeaways for you. If you have any question at the end of the webinar, you can send us your questions by email or to leave it here at the box. Okay, when we talk about cosmetic products, we always emphasize that main aspect of a cosmetic has to be the safe use and the safety of consumers. Also, when talking about sun care products, this concept of safety becomes more important than ever, as sun radiations can lead to serious health problems. It's essential to correctly formulate and test sun care products. Having this in mind, I'm sure you heard about this problem from time to time. In 2020, this famous brand became the target of social media. So what went wrong? When INCA decoder, an ingredient database found by a cosmetic chemist, shared the lab results that showed the SPF level was only 19, news spread quickly. This SPF was less than half of its purported SPF 50+, so the brand had to issue a press release, shelve the sunscreen, was also offering refunds and blame onto the manufacturer. As the manufacturing company said, the product has been approved by the Korean Food and Drug Administration. This situation is not abnormal. Scandal is far from an isolated incident, and we can find consumer reports stating that they found 36 out of 53 sunscreens tested were less protective than their labeled SPF. Many brands have failed post-marketing consumer testing before, including cosmetic giants. We don't think these failures mean such brands can be trusted. There are a lot of reasons why lab results don't end up matching what's reported on labels. Different testing standard between labs, as it is not the same to test under ISO or FDA or Australian protocols. Also, variation in batch potency, improper storage can affect the formula. In most cases, however, companies are not deliberately overstating the protection levels. For this reason, and among others, here in the EU, we can find strict safety rules and mechanisms to be respected before making a product available to consumers. Also, national authorities across the European Union are taking action to ensure that products sold to us are safe. Every day, the European Commission receives alerts from national authorities concerning dangerous products found on their markets. Those alerts are sent through the Rapid Alert System for Non-Dangerous Food Products, the Safety Gate. They include information about the type of products found, the risk posed, and the measures taken at national level to prevent or restrict their marketing. Weekly reports of this alert are available at their website and they are public. For example, here in Spain, the Spanish Agency for Medicines and Health Products conducts market monitoring campaigns for sunscreen products to ensure their effectiveness. We all have in mind that safety is the main concept to focus on sun care products, and making efficacy tests and establishing standards to test them is compulsory, as sun care products have to be considered as safe, but they have to be considered effective too. Let's start with the ultraviolet radiation. It is the radiation coming from the sun that reaches the Earth, and it does so in the forms of UVC, UVB, UVA, visible light, and infrared in different wavelengths. If we have a look at the graphic, we can find that ultraviolet radiation is electromagnetic radiation whose wavelength is comprised between 400 and 50 nanometers. And what happens with the radiation? When UV rays arrive to our skin, melanocytes try to absorb them in the superficial layers of the skin, and this to prevent them from penetrating the deeper layers. UVB rays are absorbed quickly at first layers of the skin, and they cause sunburn. UVA rays with longer wavelength penetrate the dermis, having a long-term effect. They are the main factor for sun aging. UVC rays, the most dangerous ones, stay in the ozone layer, and IR radiation penetrates through the epidermis and dermis to the hypodermis, being responsible for the heat sensation. So, as we have now a stroke of what are UV rays, let's begin with what does it mean SPF and how SPF testing is done. In short, SPF, the sun protection factor, measures how much protection you get from a sunscreen in front of erythemal or sunburn caused by UV rays. SPF factor is the measure of the effectiveness with which sunscreens will protect our skin. MID stands for minimum erythemal dose, or how much UV is required for red burn to occur. Here we can see SPF is calculated with the minimum erythemal dose of a skin protected with the product under study and the minimum erythemal dose of unprotected skin. So, SPF don't tell us how much longer we can stay in the sun. This is a common misconception that SPF refers of how much longer you can stay before getting sunburn. But SPF means how many times more UV radiation your skin can handle before burning with sunscreen on, compared to nothing at all. If we are going to measure SPF values, let's have a look on the legal framework to do it. First of all, we have to highlight that sun care products can be considered in a different way depending on the country we are. To have a general overview, the three main regulations classify sun care products as follows. In Europe, they are considered as cosmetic products under the Cosmetics Regulation. In the US, they are considered over-the-counter or OTC products under NDA or ANDA regulations. In Australia, they are considered as therapeutic sunscreen products. We will continue today with the European regulation, as is the one to follow to sell sun care products in Europe. Under European regulation, sun care products are considered as cosmetic products. Any substance or mixture intended to be placed in contact with the external part of the human body, with the main function, in this case, to protect them. Following the regulation and its definition, we find UVB filters as the substances dedicated exclusively or mainly to protect the skin against certain UV radiation by the mechanisms of absorbing it, reflecting it, scattering this UV radiation. And also taking into account that a cosmetic product made available on the market shall be safe for human health, we consider UV filters an important part of product safety. At cosmetic products, only UV filters listed at the Annex 6 of the regulation can be used, and no other substances can be used claiming UV protection. Following the restrictions stated at the regulation, cosmetic products shall not contain UV filters other than those listed in Annex 6, and also these UV filters which are listed there but not used in accordance with the conditions laid down in the Annex. Also, we cannot add UV filters at cosmetic products if they are not going to be used at UV filters or in accordance with the specific conditions. Some of the UV filters can be found also in nanoform, and its use is permitted, but restricted by the conditions established at the different entrances of the Annex 6 of the regulation, and a high level of protection of human health shall be ensured. UV filters. So, we know how to use them, but who are those UV filters? Two different types of filters can be used. Can we classify them by the action they have, as absorbing the radiation or reflecting? No, this statement is not true. We can classify them as organic filters, which are carbon-based, and inorganic filters, with mineral-based zinc oxide and titanium dioxide, free of carbon. When talking about UV filters, we don't have to describe them as chemical or physical filters, because it can be misleading. Also, so-called natural filters are not really natural. Even inorganic filters are chemical filters because they are produced by chemical means. It has nothing to do with being extracted from a natural raw material. Since there was a misconception for a long time that inorganic filters only scatter and reflect UV rays, which are a physical phenomenon, the term physical UV filter was coined. Protection from the scattering and reflection of light is only about 10%, whereas the remaining 90% is from the absorption of UVB radiation. The mechanism of organic filters focus on the absorption of light. They absorb UV radiation, converting it into harmless heat. This must all be taken into account when choosing the right UV filters or finding the right mixture of different filters. As we know how to use and classify UV filters, let's see which ones can be used. There is no need to place here an exhaustive list of the filters that can be used, as their chemical names will not tell us a lot. But you have all of them listed at Annex 6 of the regulation, with their INCA name and different instructions, as at which products can be used or not, the maximum concentration allowed, and other indication, as if they need any wording or condition of use and warnings. Please take into account the European regulation is a living document, which is periodically updated and modified. We usually notify our client about those changes and review the notified products to ensure the products are updated following the changes of the regulation. One example of those changes are the 2 new substances added to the Annex 6 to be used at UV filter. The additions were made in April 2019 and November 2020 after a broad study of safety made by the SSCS, the Scientific Committee of Consumer Safety. To start measuring SPF, we have to take a look at the Commission recommendation on September 2006 on the efficacy of sunscreen products and the claims made thereto. Sunscreen products should be sufficiently effective against UVB and UVA radiation to ensure a high protection of public health. To this end, a sunscreen product should provide a minimum UVB and UVA protection, so we have to measure or test the sunscreen products we have to see the level of protection. It was also recommended that UVA radiation has to be at least 1/3 of the factor measured by the sun protection factor testing method. Thus, we have to measure also the UVA level protection at sunscreen products. Also, this has to be indicated by the word UVA into a circle, as it is shown at the image. This is the official symbol to show the product complies with this level of protection, that is, at least 1/3 of the SPF level. Moreover, in order to ensure a broad protection, dermatologists recommended a critical wavelength of at least 370 nanometers to cover all the UV spectral radiations. So the critical wavelength has to be checked too. UV filters have to do a difficult job. They are expected to provide reliable protection against different UV rays. A combination of effective UVB, UVA, and broadband filters that provide overall protection has become a must. When developing new products, it is important to think about what the end user wants and needs. It's not the same to formulate suncare products to be used on the beach or on the mountain and to formulate products that can be used daily. Sunscreen manufacturers want their customers to feel good with the product and its application, so creams, lotion, and oils should feel good to end users to enjoy using them. We need studies to check the SPF value. We need to check protection against UVA. The critical wavelength has to be covered, and also good performance of the sunscreen products when used. Water-resistant condition to ensure the product will stay on the skin, protecting us. So which one are the studies? Well, it depends. In the past, in order to ensure the reproducibility and comparability of the recommended minimum protection against UVB radiation, Europe, Japan, South Africa, and the US recommended the International Sun Protection Factor test in 2006. In 2010, the ISO standard 24,444, called in vivo determination of sun protection factor, replaced the previously recommended international SPF test method of 2006. This new ISO standard for the in vivo determination was widely used in Europe and Australia, substituted by the new ISO review published in 2019. At the US, they use FDA regulation and other federal regulation as the 2011 Sunscreen Final Rule. In practice, the differences between methods make impossible the comparison of the SPF effectiveness. Presently, there are no equivalent factor or tables that will allow the comparison of SPF values obtained in different regulations. For these reasons, ISO standard was created, a harmonized and global methodology, to ensure all suncare products can be measured under the same condition, ensuring safety of the consumers. Even so, Differences have emerged between laboratories, as we saw at the beginning of the presentation, and ISO reviewed its previous standard from 2010 to publish it again in 2019. So, measuring SPF, the standard from 2010 replaced the International Sun Protection Factor test method of 2006, and nowadays the ISO standard from 2010 is replaced by the one published in 2019. With UVA radiation, the recommendation for the minimum protection against UVA radiation was at first the persistent pigment darkening method as applied in Japan, and later was modified by the French Health Agency and replaced by the ISO standard, as well as the critical wavelength test. So, this webinar wants to be useful, and because of this, we want to share our internal methodology to help develop SUNCREEN products. This is the most efficient and cost-effective way we found. We hope you find it helpful. We were talking about in vivo SPF tests. These tests are done by putting 2 milligrams per square centimeter of sunscreen on the backs of human volunteers. A special UV lamp is shown onto the bags, and how much UV the skin can take with and without the sunscreen is compared. Of course, we will not be doing in vivo tests before in vitro, as we have to be sure the product will be truly effective on the skin of the volunteers for ethical reasons. First of all, a sample of the product is taken to the lab, and following ISO standards, SPF theoretical value is measured. All aspects of the formula, mainly the ingredients, have an impact as SPF value, as it is not the same an easily spreading lotion than a SUNCREEN product in stick. This in vitro test that provides a quick evaluation of the product. When it's done, we can study the product as further in vivo SPF measurements and UVA in vitro broad spectrum test, both requiring longer studies and higher costs. So we started identifying at the lab the SPF value and verifying the quality of the sunscreen concerning the critical wavelength and SPF UVA ratio. We will follow with the in vivo study, usually performed on male and female volunteers with age between 80 and 70 years, and shall comply inclusion criteria and be maintained on the test area. Next stage involves 5 of these volunteers at the in vivo test, confirming the results of the in vitro test, and further tests with minimum 5 more volunteers will be done. So now, when this test is finished, we have confirmed the SPF value of the product we are developing. Later on, as we have the formulation and we check it's stable and microbiology and challenge test passed, the product has to be labeled according to the table within the 4 categories listed. It can be labeled at low protection factor, medium protection, high protection, or very high protection. Only the values listed at SPF column can be used at the labeling of the product to avoid confusion. So if our product has demonstrated an SPF value of 22, it will be labeled as 20, and if the product has SPF value as 42, it will be labeled as 30, always with the lower value at the range to ensure maximum protection. So as you can see, it leads us with a huge diversity of SUNCREEN products on the market with different protection levels, different formulations for kids or for face care. Also, in different formats, it can be sprayed, can be a lotion, can be an oil, leaving huge range of cosmetic products. I hope you have now better understanding on what's going on with SUNCREEN products, and To finish the webinar, we want to summarize some key takeaways. So as we were saying at first, safety first. Sun care product has to be properly tested. Not only SPF values, also they have to pass challenge tests, microbiological tests, and also stability and compatibility tests. Also, as probably happened with Purito, a similar formula of the product is not always valid for SPF testing, as all the ingredients used of the product can affect the SPF measurements. It's not the same to have clear lotions than a product in a stick. The layer formed on the skin will be different, and also the SPF measurements. For the product, we have to choose UV filters listed at Annex 6 and use them according to the statements made at the regulation. Some of them have a maximum concentrate stated, and we have to follow the rules. Later on, the next step is to perform the SPF in vitro test. It requires a small sample and it can be done quickly. Later, we will perform SPF in vivo test, confirming SPF UVA ratio and critical wavelength. This test is mandatory in Europe. And finally, we will label the product properly with the correct SPF value and proper instructions of use and warnings. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into some of the issues around SPF. This only really just skims the surface, but hopefully the complexity of whole situation makes a lot more sense now. As you may know, we have broad expertise in cosmetics and EU regulation, also testing them. If you want more information about how can we help you, do not hesitate to contact us. We elaborate PIF and safety assessment for companies around the world, and we can act as EU or UK responsible person. Thank you so much for your attention. For any question you may have about this webinar, you can contact me at my email address or through our webpage or social media. We will be glad to answer your doubts.